The betrayal didn't come with gunfire. It came with silence. For hours, Earth's skies were eerily clear, no shuttles climbing from the launch ports, no freighters on re-entry streaking trails of fire across the atmosphere. Just an empty blue dome, as if the whole planet were holding its breath. Captain Mark Dalton felt it before he saw it. Standing on the bridge of the USSF Resolute, hands braced against the edge of the holographic war table, he watched as red markers began to multiply across the three-dimensional display. 1, 3, 9, then dozens. Alien warships dropping out of FTL in perfect synchronization. The blockade was forming. All sectors reporting mass incursions. Lieutenant Aria Wells called from her console, her voice tight with barely concealed panic. "We're being surrounded, Captain." Dalton didn't look up. His blue eyes were locked on the display, watching as enemy ships spread into an unbroken ring around Seoul's shipping lanes. "They're closing every exit," Commander Leah Harker said from his right, her voice low and steady. "This isn't a warning, Mark. This is a news." Chief Engineer Adam Cross swore under his breath at the engineering station. "What are they waiting for? Why aren't they firing?" "They don't need to fire," Dalton said at last, his voice like gravel. "They just have to wait until we do. One shot from us, and they'll have their excuse to wipe us out." The air on the bridge felt too thin, every breath tight in the chest. Everyone knew what a council blockade meant. This wasn't a negotiation tactic. It was a death sentence delivered with polite words. Then the transmission came through. The holoprojector in the center of the bridge flared to life, painting the room in pale light. The image that appeared was impossibly tall, impossibly alien, the council speaker. Its skin was glass pale, almost translucent, with faint veins glowing like circuitry beneath the surface. Its many eyes glimmered with cold intelligence as it spoke, each word translated into perfectly sterile standard. "Humans of Earth. By decree of the Galactic Council, your membership and all associated privileges are hereby revoked. Effective immediately, your fleets are to stand down. No ship is to leave the Sol system. No weapon is to be powered or deployed. This is not a negotiation." The message ended abruptly. No debate, no appeals. Just a sentence passed. For a long moment, there was only silence on the bridge. Dalton exhaled slowly, his knuckles white against the edge of the table. "Captain?" Leah's voice was quiet, almost hesitant. "No orders," he said finally, turning to face his crew. His expression was unreadable, a mask of iron control. "Not yet." The blockade held for 3 days. No ship was allowed to leave orbit. Cargo haulers were turned back. Civilian transports were boarded by alien soldiers and inspected. The few that resisted were impounded. Human colonies beyond Mars reported that Council enforcement fleets were moving in, securing infrastructure in the name of preventing escalation. Dalton watched it all play out from orbit. Every hour brought more bad news, more images of human scientists and engineers being dragged away from research labs, of children huddled in detention bays while alien banners were raised over human habitats. "This is a slow suffocation," Leah said on the third day, standing beside him as another broadcast came in, footage of soldiers locking down Europa Station. "They're not going to stop with the blockade. They're dismantling everything we built out here." Dalton didn't answer. His jaw was tight, his eyes fixed on the footage. "They want us compliant," Adam said bitterly from his station. "They want us scared enough to never fight back." "And it's working," Leah snapped. "We're just sitting here, watching it happen." Dalton turned sharply, and the steel in his gaze silenced the bridge. "Because the moment we move, the moment we power a single weapon," he said, his voice low and dangerous, "they'll paint us as aggressors. Then they'll have the justification to finish what they started. This isn't a standoff. It's a test. And if we fail it, billions will pay the price." The bridge went quiet again. By the 5th day, Earth's cities were restless. Protests erupted on the streets of New York, Nairobi, Sydney. The United Earth Assembly broadcast frantic calls for calm. Diplomats pleaded with the Council for dialogue, for mediation. And then came the final straw. Footage arrived from Ceres Habitat, one of the largest human colonies in the belt. Alien soldiers storming the habitat's administrative tower, arresting the elected governor, hauling him away in shackles as the council's flag was hoisted over the colony. Dalton stood in the briefing room aboard the Resolute when the video played. His senior officers were gathered around the table. Leah's face was pale with anger. "This isn't containment," she said coldly. "It's occupation." "They've crossed the line," Adam said, slamming a fist onto the table. "We can't just sit here and watch this happen." The briefing room panel chimed a priority transmission from Earth. Dalton keyed it open, and the face of President Elaine Maddox filled the room. Her eyes were hard, her expression carved from iron. "People of Earth," her voice rang across the ship's speakers, firm and unshaking, "for days we have waited for justice. We have trusted the Galactic Council's processes, we have abided by their decrees. And for our patience, we have been rewarded with chains. Today, that ends. Today, we will not wait any longer." Her words seemed to electrify the air. The transmission ended, replaced by a single line of text on the screen. "Authorization code, Blackfire." Leah inhaled sharply. "Sir, they actually authorized it." Adam's hands froze over his console. "Blackfire? That's war." Dalton stared at the glowing letters for a long moment, feeling the weight of history pressing down on his shoulders. Then he straightened, his decision made. "Not war," he said quietly. "Justice." He turned to his crew, his voice steady and full of fire. "Blackfire has been authorized. Power up the Vanguard missiles. Signal the hidden fleet, it's time to break the blockade." The bridge crew sprang into motion, the hum of systems powering up filling the air. For the first time in days, there was purpose, dangerous, defiant purpose on their faces. Dalton moved to the center of the bridge, his gaze sweeping over his crew. "Today," he said, his voice like a battle drum, "we take back the sky." War came at dawn. The Resolute drifted in the shadow of Europa, running dark. Her lights were off, her engines cold, her profile hidden in the moon's electromagnetic interference. On the bridge, the air was electric, charged with a quiet anticipation that bordered on dread. Captain Mark Dalton stood at the center of the command deck, hands clasped behind his back, his eyes fixed on the holographic display floating before him. Dozens of enemy markers glowed in the void, the blockade fleet, perfectly arrayed in defensive formation, their sensors sweeping like a net. "They have no idea we're here," Commander Leah Harker said softly, glancing up from the tactical console. Her voice was calm, but her fingers trembled as they danced over the controls. "They think we're still caged in Earth orbit," Dalton replied, his tone iron-flat. Chief Engineer Adam Cross broke the tension with a low whistle. "They're about to get the rudest wake-up call in galactic history." "Not yet," Dalton said. "We strike on my mark." The crew waited, the seconds stretching thin, until Leah spoke again. "Enemy patrol turning away. Sensor sweep window now." Dalton's jaw tightened. His next words were measured, deliberate. "Helm, bring us about. Weapons, full power. Launch tubes 1 through 4, load vanguards." The hum of the ship changed as power bled from auxiliary systems to weapons and engines. The deck plates vibrated faintly under Dalton's boots. The air felt warmer, heavier, as though the ship itself were holding its breath. "All tubes hot," Adam reported, his voice clipped. Dalton's hand closed into a fist. "Fire!" The first salvo of Vanguard missiles leapt from the Resolute's hidden bays like spears hurled by giants. Their drives ignited an instant later, streaking away in brilliant white arcs that cut through the blackness of space. The alien fleet never saw them coming. The first missile struck an enemy destroyer dead center, punching through its shield bubble before detonating with a blinding flash. The destroyer's hull buckled, fire venting from its seams, and then it tore apart in a silent bloom of shrapnel. On the bridge of the Resolute, Adam shouted over the rising din, "Direct hit. Target destroyed." "Target the command cruiser," Dalton said, voice as cold as vacuum. "We end this quickly." The Resolute's railguns thundered, hurling slugs of dense metal at near relativistic speed. The rounds ripped through enemy shielding like paper, shearing the command cruiser's dorsal hull apart in a storm of glowing debris. Panic swept through the blockade. Council comm channels crackled with urgent chatter, their calm, authoritative tone replaced by shouting and confusion. Unknown vessels in Sector 3, shields failing. Command ship is hit, repeat, command ship is hit. Pull back, regroup at Point Kappa. Leah allowed herself a grim smile. They weren't ready for us. No, Dalton said, watching the chaos unfold. They thought we'd stay on our knees. The Resolute's sister ships decloaked one by one, fanning out in a deadly crescent. The Vanguard, the Shiloh, the Andromeda, every one of them a product of Project Revenant, the secret program Earth had hidden beyond Neptune for over a decade. Fleet reports ready, Leah said. They're awaiting your signal. Dalton didn't hesitate. All ships, this is Dalton. Open fire. The void lit up. Human ships unleashed everything they had, missile salvos, railgun barrages, particle lances that carved through enemy shields like knives through silk. Alien ships tried to scatter, but the trap had been set. The Resolute's fleet was faster, leaner, built with one purpose in mind, to kill Council warships. Enemy cruiser down. Wells shouted from sensors. 2 more disabled, they're retreating. They won't get far, Leah said, already plotting intercept vectors. Adam glanced over his shoulder, hesitant. Captain, if we push this hard, we risk escalation. The Council will call this a war crime. Dalton turned to face him, and for a moment, the bridge went still. They blockaded Earth, he said quietly. They stole our colonies. They dragged civilians out of their homes at gunpoint. This isn't escalation. This is justice. He turned back to the display. Pursue and finish them. For 3 hours, the battle raged across Europa's orbit. The blockade fleet, once so confident, was broken apart ship by ship. Some fought to the end, their wreckage scattering into Europa's ice ring. Others cut power and surrendered, their crews broadcasting distress signals as human boarding parties moved in. By the second day, the blockade was shattered. Leah stood over the holotable, her uniform torn at the shoulder, sweat plastering her hair to her forehead. Enemy fleet is falling back toward the jump gate, she reported. They're abandoning their positions. Dalton nodded once. Then we don't let them escape intact. Order all squadrons to cut them off. Sir, Adam's voice was quieter this time, but insistent. If we drive them back too far, this stops being a local action. It becomes a full interstellar war. Dalton's gaze was hard as he looked up from the display. Adam, open your eyes. This is a war. They just didn't expect us to fight it. He turned toward the crew, his voice rising. They thought they could cage us forever. Today we showed them we'll burn the cage to ash before we bow. When the last enemy ship slipped through the jump gate, limping and burning, the Resolute's comms lit up with an incoming transmission. Encrypted. High level. Leah frowned. It's Council clearance, they're asking for direct communication with you. Put it through, Dalton said. The hologram of the Council speaker appeared, but gone was the air of quiet superiority. Its robes were scorched, its voice no longer calm but strained, its many eyes flicking nervously. Captain Dalton. We acknowledge your capabilities. The blockade will be lifted. Your colonies will be released. Further conflict is unnecessary. The bridge fell silent. Every officer turned to Dalton, waiting. For a moment, he said nothing, staring at the image as though weighing the galaxy itself in his hands. Then he spoke, each word measured and sharp. Tell the speaker this isn't over. We're not just fighting for our colonies anymore. We're fighting for a future where no species ever does this to us again. He cut the transmission. Then, slowly, deliberately, he turned toward the helm. Set course for the jump gate, he ordered. Leah's head snapped up, shock flashing in her eyes. Sir, that leads to Council space. Dalton's expression was carved from stone. Exactly. The crew exchanged glances, fear, excitement, grim determination, but no one disobeyed. The Resolute turned on her axis, her engines burning hot, as the rest of the fleet fell in behind her. For the first time in history, a human battle group was going to take the fight beyond Seoul. And somewhere deep in his chest, Mark Dalton felt something he hadn't since the day the blockade began. Hope. The stars over the council capital had never burned so bright. From the observation deck of the Resolute, Captain Mark Dalton watched as the fleet emerged from FTL, one ship after another tearing through the void like ghosts stepping out of darkness. The jump gate behind them still glowed with residual energy, but they didn't linger. Fleet status? Dalton asked, his voice calm, almost unnervingly so. All ships accounted for, Commander Leah Harker reported from her console. Dreadnought group holding formation. Strike wings deployed. The holographic display flared to life, painting the bridge in cold blue light. Before them lay the council homeworld, a glittering marble hanging against the stars, surrounded by dozens of orbital platforms and defense rings. Each one bristled with weapons. "This is it," Adam Cross muttered, his voice hushed. "The most heavily defended system in the galaxy." "And we're here," Dalton said quietly. No one replied. There was no bravado on the bridge, no cheers of triumph. Only a heavy, focused silence as every officer absorbed the scale of what they were about to do. The council defenses reacted almost immediately. Orbital platforms shifted to lock targeting sensors on the intruding fleet. Warning transmissions lit up the comms. "Unidentified warships, you have entered restricted space. Power down your weapons and withdraw immediately or you will be engaged." Dalton stood perfectly still. "Open a channel," he said. The calm light blinked. "Channel open." "This is Captain Mark Dalton of the United Systems Fleet," he said, his voice carrying like a war drum through every ship in the human formation. "You blockaded Earth. You seized our colonies. You stole our people. We have come for them." He let the silence hang for a beat. "Lower your shields, release every human you hold, and sign a treaty guaranteeing our sovereignty, or we burn every one of your defenses to ash." The Council's answer came in the form of fire. A dozen defense platforms opened up at once, lances of plasma and hypervelocity rounds streaking toward the human fleet. The void lit with violent blue light as shields flared under the assault. "Shields holding," Leah reported, gripping the console. "Minimal damage." "Return fire," Dalton ordered, his tone clipped, sharp. The Resolute's railguns spat death, joined by the withering fire of the rest of the fleet. Their first volley ripped two orbital platforms apart, turning them into expanding clouds of molten metal. The second volley shattered the defense grid. "Enemy shields failing." Wells shouted from sensors. "We're breaching their perimeter." "Push forward," Dalton commanded. "Target military assets only. No civilian strikes." The human fleet surged like a blade through the Council's defenses. Enemy warships scrambled to intercept, but they were outmatched. Revenant-class cruisers maneuvered with predatory precision, flanking defenders and ripping them apart with coordinated missile salvos. Hours into the battle, the once pristine sky over the Council homeworld was a graveyard of wreckage. The last defense platform exploded in a silent flash, its debris tumbling toward the atmosphere. Leah exhaled slowly, almost in disbelief. "We've broken them," she said softly. "Their entire orbital defense net is gone." Dalton didn't move from his position at the center of the bridge. "Hold position over the capital. Broadcast to all channels." Leah hesitated, then nodded. "You're live." Dalton's voice rolled across every comm channel, every military frequency, every public broadcast in the system. "This is Captain Dalton. Your fleets are destroyed. Your defenses are gone. There will be no more blockades. No more occupations. You will return every colony, every citizen you have taken, and you will never again lay claim to humanity's future." He paused, letting the words hang in the air, letting them sink into every ear across the planet. "If you refuse, then we finish this today and no council will be left to make any more decrees." The wait was excruciating. Minutes passed. Then 10. Then 20. No response. The bridge was so silent that the hum of the ship's reactors seemed deafening. Finally, a transmission came through. The speaker appeared, not as the towering, imperious figure from before, but haggard and singed, its many eyes dulled with exhaustion. Smoke swirled faintly in the background. The council chamber itself had clearly come under fire during the attack. "Captain Dalton," it said, voice hoarse. "We acknowledge your position. The blockade is permanently lifted. Your colonies will be released immediately. The Council will sign a sovereignty treaty with your species." Dalton studied the image for a long moment. "Transmit it," he said finally. "We'll sign it in orbit." Leah shot him a quick glance. "You trust them?" "No," Dalton said. "But we just taught them why they should fear breaking their word." The treaty was signed within the hour. When the last signature was confirmed, Dalton stood before the viewport, looking down at the Council's glittering capital one final time. "Helm," he said, his voice quieter now, almost tired. "Take us home." The Resolute and her fleet turned as one, engines flaring as they slipped back toward the jump gate. Behind them, the Council homeworld hung silent, humbled, a planet that had just learned humanity would never again kneel. When they emerged in soul space, Earth was waiting. Cities lit up the night in celebration. Civilian ships flew formation with the returning fleet, broadcasting messages of gratitude and triumph. On the bridge, Leah stood beside Dalton, watching the planet grow larger in the viewport. "We really did it," she said, her voice almost a whisper. "We broke the Council." Dalton didn't look away from the planet below. "No," he said softly. "We reminded them that we are not to be caged. Not now. Not ever." He let the silence stretch for a moment, the weight of everything they'd fought for settling on his shoulders. "Set course for Earth orbit," he said at last. "Let them see the fleet that came home." And for the first time since the day the skies went silent, the people of Earth looked up and felt safe. Pushpin subscribe to HFY Story Hub for more epic human vs. galaxy tales.